Welcome to the Weekly Fix podcast, where we're just two friends talking about our passions within movies, TV shows, gaming, and comics. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We hope you like it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Weekly Fix. My name is Jacob, and joining me as always is my good friend Zane, and we are here to give you guys our Thunderbolts review. We both got to go watch it recently. We went this past Saturday, and we had an absolute blast, so I'm super excited to sit down, break it down, and talk about what could be one of the best Marvel movies since Avengers Endgame, which I know is saying a lot because we've had some great stuff since then, but man, was this movie awesome. But before we get into any of those topics and conversations, Zane, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am a little bit tired. The weekend was flew by. I flew out to Oklahoma City for my work and was out there until Saturday morning. Woke up at 3:30 and started my trek back. Got back late. Then church on Sunday. A little bit of time with the family, and then I was probably not wise and stayed up and watched the Golden State Warriors game and The Last of Us. So, not great for someone who wakes up at 4:30, but regardless, I'm here. I'm excited and I am ready to talk about this. I'm loving the playoffs. I know you are too. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, you did something that I usually choose not to do, and it's the big reason why I hate when the Knicks go on those West road trips, because those West games in the Western Conference of the NBA, they just start so late, and they usually don't end till like sometimes close to 1 in the morning. So kudos to you for staying up and supporting your team. It would be tough for me to do that unless it was like an NBA final situation, which I think I could suffer a little bit of sleep. But no, I'm doing great. Super excited to talk about this movie because I think we both had such an exciting time going to see it. Our expectations were high. And I think as far as we are concerned, it very much so delivered. So I'm really excited to kind of talk about it more with you because obviously we've talked a little bit about it here and there, but we usually try to reserve our full conversations for this podcast. I know there's some things that you probably haven't got to tell me about and I haven't got to tell you about, and so I think this is going to be a really great one. So are you ready to hop right into this Thunderbolts review?
Oh, I am super excited about it. It's going to be very difficult to give an honest review without spoiling, but we are going to do that. So, if you do not want any spoilers, make sure you head out and when we say, "Hey, our spoiler review is starting," because I'm going to give a upfront like this needs to be watched. This is a worthwhile watch. So just free run if you want zero spoilers at all. You might want to wait until after you see it, but we will give a warning before we go full haywire on the spoilers.
Yeah, for sure. And there is so much to talk about. This movie did a lot of cool things, a lot of fun things, and it touched on some topics that I think can be really hard to touch on, but when you do them right, they can be executed so well and create such a great story. So, obviously, this movie has a lot to talk about, but let's just start off with our overall consensus of the movie. You know, you hinted at it a little bit that this is a must watch in theaters. Why don't you elaborate on that? What did it do for you, obviously, without the spoilers? Was the acting what did it for you? Was it the action? Was it the look of the movie? Was it visually appealing? The CGI? What was the thing that like got you to be like, yep, this is a must watch in the theaters?
Yeah, honestly, it's a culmination of all of those things. So not only is it the acting ensemble that they put together is phenomenal, they literally do a incredible job. You got Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Lewis Pullman coming in as Bob does a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic job. Wyatt Russell reprising his role is just as unlikable and as likable as you need a character like him to be. David Harbour brings it as always. You got Julia Louis-Dreyfus doing a great De Fonte. This cast is just super good, and then you have the backup cast with Wendell Pierce playing a very great role. I haven't seen him since I believe his role in the John Krasinski series on Prime. But I really liked him as the congressman. I think he did a great job as well. Then you got her assistant who played very well. And it was really good to see Hannah John Kamen back as Ava Starr Ghost. So, I mean, the cast is just really, really good, super solid. No weak points in this film for acting wise, and then the practical effects and use of camera is just better than what we've gotten in recent years for Marvel. It is minimal CGI with emphasis on practical, stylized directing, on location shooting with amazing chemistry, and then a phenomenal story with a theme that's not beat around the bush. Like it's clearly there and it's an obvious upfront uh it's not like, oh, I kind of got a subtle hint that they were talking about depression. No, it's front and center, but it's handled so tastefully that it's not boring, it's not downtrodden, and it's just really, really good and a good way to express it. So I think just all of those things just make it a must see. And one of my favorite things is that it doesn't really require much preloading on watching to go watch
Mhm.
this film.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's something that has been almost an emphasis for Marvel as of recently when they're doing their press conferences, when they're at these big Comic Cons and stuff like that. It seems like that's a question that gets brought up to them a lot is what are you going to do for the viewer that hasn't had time to sit down and watch all of these shows? Because I forget what the number is. I saw it the other day, but the amount of hours you would have to invest to catch up with Marvel if you wanted to see everything that's come out and you wanted to, not only see it, but remember it all because it's a lot of content to take in. It's a lot. So I really do appreciate that they were able to do that with this movie. They gave us a movie that you don't really have to have watched other stuff for. And if you did, you might have got a little more from it, which I think is exactly how you should handle stuff like this. You don't want it to be something that you're completely lost going into it as soon as the movie starts, not understanding who the characters are, what the story is going to be about. Everything was pulled together very well to give those new viewers something that they can still sit down and enjoy. So definitely applaud them for that. I got to agree with the acting. And I think the biggest part of the acting is another thing that you mentioned, the chemistry. These actors all seem like they really enjoy working together, and you could tell a lot of that from just the facial expressions they would give each other during the scenes, right? They never looked irritated with each other. It was just a really great environment that they were in, and so that's something that always can pull a cast together is the chemistry is there. The action was really, really good, and you touched on it the way that it was recorded, the different shots that they got for all these scenes. I really enjoyed all those aspects of it. So if this non-spoiler part of the review doesn't give you guys the confidence to go see it, then I feel like we're doing a disservice to what we're saying because it was just an absolutely fantastic movie. Everything was pulled together really well. You touched on the topic a little bit of depression, which is something that if you're going to talk about it, you have to be careful about because you don't want to downplay it, right? It's definitely a problem, especially here in America. We hear about it all the time. So the way that they were able to execute that without making it downplayed, without making it seem too drawn out and too far fetched, it was just done really, really well. So I think all of these things combined to say we both probably, I'm going to let you get back to this here in a second, highly recommend that you do go see this movie in the theaters. It was just such an exciting and great movie to watch. And it's kind of what cinema is all about. Like these are the things we are always wanting every time we go to the theaters. And this one definitely didn't disappoint.
No, didn't disappoint at all. And I think this is a subject, just talking about depression, that has come about significantly more since COVID. Our political landscape is pretty atrocious. Our world just kind of is different than it was beforehand. And not that it wasn't a problem before, but the isolation that occurred during COVID and then the lack of community that kind of sprung out of COVID has really caused this issue to be front and center in American life, especially in the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
And, the older generation didn't believe in therapy. They kind of use that as a bad word. And we have a bunch of kids growing up who don't know how to deal with problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is a good movie to kind of breach the subject. Now, we're not solving any problems here. No, someone with depression is not going to walk out of this movie
No.
and no longer have depression. But I think it was a good depiction of what loneliness, isolation, and that kind of helpless feeling can cause. And so this is definitely a movie that I thought handled that incredibly well. And we're talking about a Marvel film.
Mm-hmm.
It's still super fun. It's hilarious. I think one of the things that we haven't touched on is the humor. The humor in this absolutely hits. There's several movies here lately that Marvel has released where the jokes just don't land for me. Captain America: Brave New World was definitely um, one of them. That just did not hit for me. Like most of the humor fell flat. And I honestly can't think of one moment in this movie where a joke was said and I cringed or didn't laugh. I at least was smiling if I wasn't audibly laughing. It was just a very funny, clever, and really good movie.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad you brought up the humor because it was very funny. Like I found myself laughing at almost every single joke, and that's hard to do in a Marvel movie, especially because we can be overly critical about things, especially in Marvel movies. And so the fact that they were able to execute that well makes it really exciting. And I think if you're still, on the fence about this movie and you're like, I don't know if it's something I want to go see, I don't know if, the things they're saying are exciting. I think a good movie comparison is Guardians of the Galaxy. We've both kind of talked about that a little bit. It has a lot of those same, chemistry with the cast is really good. We get to see a lot of, good jokes. You do get those deep moments. We, especially referring to Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that like hit hard. I think that's a very good comparison. So if you are a fan of those movies, I think this is probably as close as you're going to get without it being a Guardians movie, which I think is only very high praise especially when you're talking about one of the best, series in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and for those people who don't like Guardians of the Galaxy because of the fantasticalness of it,
Hmm.
this kind of is a middle ground as well, where it's much more grounded. It's not as big stakes, it's not as over the top. Now we do get a superhero in here that has a high ceiling. That's all I'll say for anyone who has not, has been living under a rock waiting to see this. For the most part, we're not traveling in outer space, we're not, doing lasers out of our eyes. There's a whole lot of groundedness in this movie, which I also think ups the quality of this. A lot of the MCU has lost its appeal to people because the scale has gone to something that's unrelatable,
Hmm.
and this really kind of brings it back down, kind of soaks it in, and I think really nails it. So
And then the last thing I wanted to touch on with this movie is we've both been very big advocates of this, and it's the fact that this movie is a complete movie, right? Obviously, it does lead to something else. Like, obviously, every Marvel movie that comes out is always going to have, the next step. But I think personally, and you can agree or disagree with me on this, I think this movie does a really good job of just telling a story. And if we never got anything else with it, it was still just a really, really great movie that I would enjoy watching again. Would you agree with the self-containedness of this story?
oh, absolutely. This is just a solid film, start to finish. My wife has not watched some of the precursors to this, and I think that would be a good thing to talk about before we move on to spoilers. Is what do you need to watch? And I think the good thing is that there's really not too much you have to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's something that will add to it if you watch the things that come prior, but you don't have to. And so that's one of the things that, like you said, it's a complete movie. It has a story, it's telling from start to finish. It's connected to the outside MCU, but it's not reliant on it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't rely on you having past knowledge for something to work or something to click. It treats the audience intelligently as well for those who have seen it. They don't spoon feed you and like over explain. One of my complaints about Captain America was how much they were spoon feeding who all the characters were, and it was like even people who don't watch the MCU would have got that was Bolt Ross's daughter. Like
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to say it 7 times in a row to get us to know that. So I think what they did here was much better handling, and everyone got their spot, but they were expounding on the characters. They weren't just rehashing the characters, and that was a really big deal for me.
For sure. So that kind of the mostly our spoiler-free review here. Now I know we usually like to give our ranking for those that don't want to stick around for the spoiler part because maybe they haven't had a chance to go see it. So Zane, I think we're both possibly going to agree with this one, which doesn't always happen a whole lot. Where does this rank for you? What would you rate this?
Oh man, the rating is really difficult for me because I don't like doing this. It's not something that I do a lot. I really try to reserve this, and I don't know why it hit for me as good as it did, but I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. and that's really difficult to get out of me. But I was trying to come up with something in this film to give it a 9. Like, give me something. And after like going back through it in my head, trying to pick pieces apart, I'm sure upon like 17 watches, I could be like, it's actually a 9. But right now, there is nothing in this film that is making me lower it to a 9. After everything that we just said, I got to give it a 10 out of 10. It is a perfect Marvel film for me, and I absolutely adored this movie.
Well, somebody that loves giving out tens is myself, and obviously this one's a 10 out of 10 for me. I loved every part of this movie. I talked about it a lot, in the little bit that we have talked about it. There's not a part of this movie that I felt could have done better. And again, if you watch it over and over again, you might find some spots that you're like, I wish this was executed a little better here, on and so forth. But while I was watching the movie, I literally kept thinking to myself, I really like how that happened. I don't have anything problem with that. And then you touched on something that I think is really important. When you are looking for a reason to not rate something a 10 out of 10, which I have found myself also trying to do because I'm like, is it really that good? And I just can't come up with anything that's even close to deserving of taking a point off of it because they just do everything so well. The acting is awesome. The action is really, really good. Just everything we've already talked about. And so I think this movie is so deserving of a 10 out of 10. And I'm super happy you also are joining my 10 out of 10 bandwagon, even if it's just for a week here, because I think this movie is one of those ones that is just deserving.
Yeah, and it is. I can't disagree, and I really, really suggest going to watch this. Obviously, we're ranking it a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
And this was my most anticipated Marvel film of the year. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
I went into this movie expecting this movie to flop and it just exceeded my expectations. No, like when go back and listen to our year rundown, like what we were excited for. This was number one for me. This is more excited than the Fantastic Four. It was more excited than Captain America, and I am very excited. I'm very pleased that this did as well as it did. But I think just the established characters and the chemistry of this team already having something to build off of is what allowed it to propel so much forward.
Well, and especially you are due, something like this with, Daredevil being your most anticipated show of the year and it
Oh
being a
yeah.
letdown for you. I'm really happy that this one, pulled through and gave you what you were really desiring from this movie.
Yeah, and it did. I am very, very happy with this film. The only thing I'm sad about is that I don't get to watch it again, like right now.
Yep, yep. And I think that's a praise to the movie. But that's going to be our spoiler part of the review here, or spoiler free part of the review here. So if you guys are on the fence about going to see it, hopefully we swayed you in the direction of going to watch this movie because I definitely don't think you will not like it. I think you will find something about it that you're going to be really happy that you went and watched it. But we are going to move on to the spoiler section of this review. So here's your warning. If you guys don't want to hear any spoilers, I will give you guys a second to hop on out of here. But Zane, let's talk about some of the spoilers. Let's talk about some of this plot. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty of the movie. And let's go ahead and start off with what does this do for Marvel as a whole? We just talked about how this is kind of a self contained story, how it can be told by itself. You didn't have to really watch anything afterwards, but you also don't really know what to, like, it doesn't really. It does lead into something, but it doesn't like push us into something super hard. It's really a subtle entry. What did you think about like just the story that they told? Did you like all the aspects of it? And obviously we like the self-contained part of it, but what did you just think about the just overarching story? What are the moments that stick out in your mind that you're like, I'm really happy that that happened?
I really like the aspect of the Avengers being gone and trying to establish something in its wake. We get Dave Fonte, who we had hints of in Black Widow, and we had hints of in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, of her establishing these anti-heroes as a team, and this is the payoff of that. She had not established them as a team but as individual agents, and we get to see her working in the background to create something greater than the team themselves. And so I really love this story of she had used her assets. We had gotten as much as we had out of them. A new power arises. This is going to be the answer to the world's problem not having Avengers after our phase 5 and phase 4 aftermath of Infinity War. No one really stepping up and gathering a competent team together, which is wild that that has not happened yet. But really, kind of the story of that from a lower level perspective, and kind of how you would have to navigate the CIA aspect of doing some pretty shady stuff and getting around that. So yeah, the story for me was fantastic. I really liked it. It felt grounded in a world that's fantastical, but it felt comic booky enough that I was very satisfied and aware that I was watching a Marvel film and happy with it. So yeah, no, definitely love the story. What about you? Did you like where it was going from the get-go?
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on the Dave Fontaine stuff a little bit. I really enjoyed the way her character was done in this movie because she's one of those. I hesitate to use the word villain because she's not necessarily a villain, just not a great person. And they did a really good job of emphasizing that and making us not like her. Which, we've done a podcast in the past, like, where are our characters we love? I think this is kind of one of them, right? She hits really well of making us not like the decisions she's doing. She's always backstabbing the people we like, and she's always kind of getting away with it. And we see that at the end of the movie when she kind of emphasizes that she's the one that put this group together when she's also the same person that was trying to have them all kill each other because she was scared of what was going to come out if people found out what she was having them do. So I really liked that premise, that underlying part throughout the story, that she's just kind of like, weaseling her way through things and getting away with it. And it's so frustrating, but they did a really good job of making it feel like it worked. I didn't feel like any of the characters she was like trying to convince were dumb for believing her. Everything she did was like, you know what? If you didn't know any of the stuff that we knew, you would be like, yep, I get why you believe what she's saying. So I really liked all those aspects of it. I love the start of the movie. You asked if like, did I like how it hit the ground running for me? We get to see a really cool scene of Yelena breaking into like this science laboratory, trying to figure some stuff out, and then the next thing you know, she's being sent on a mission to go kill Ghost, and then Ghost is being sent on a mission to kill U.S. Agent John Walker, and then he's on a mission to kill. I loved all of that. I loved how the team came together. And I think those are things that are sometimes can be hard to do when you have all these characters that don't really know each other, giving them a reason to work together against somebody. And I think they did a really good job of making all of that click.
Yeah, they did, and Florence Pugh really carries the weight of this
Mm-hmm.
movie. If she wasn't as charming and as brilliant of an actress as she is, kind of opening up with her and getting to see the majority of this movie from the weight of her shoulders, I think this movie doesn't hit as well. But she is just so charming, so brilliant in this role, and performs. I would say one of the best performances we've seen in especially Phase 5.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
she just kills it. So I really love to see her accent is never distracting. It sounds like she is actually Russian, even though she's not. Like I'm very, very pleased with how well she did in this film. And props to her for being able to open this up and really give us a great scene. I love the fact that the practical effects we open up with her essentially on a rooftop, and then we get to see her base jump off the second tallest building in the entire world. And it's super cool. Like they
Mm-hmm.
actually went and did that. They actually had her go there on site. They had her base jump off of this, and then we get to see an awesome hallway scene. We get to see her blow up a lab, and they actually blew up the building. Like that was I. There's no way I thought that wasn't CGI, but it looks so good. And then I'm seeing the video of behind the scenes after, and I'm like, wow, they no, they actually did blow up that building. That's wild. What they allowed them to do in an era of Disney-fied Marvel is is surprising, but I am so glad because it was well needed. Like we needed them to get back to this level of filmmaking because that's what this is. This is not a Marvel movie. This is a film. This is a
Mm-hmm.
very, very solid film.
Yeah, for sure. It's very evident with those practical effects from the beginning, like you talked about. And that's just stuff that it's almost like, hey, here's the blueprint, right? You just had a big movie. Box office numbers, I don't think it's doing as good as it should be, obviously, with the ranking we just gave it. But it is being reviewed very, very well. And I feel like this is a blueprint that I want them to move forward with. And again, it goes back to something we talked about. We've heard Kevin Feige multiple times say not only does he want to make these movies work for people that haven't been in the MCU and haven't caught up with everything, but he's also wanted it to get back to a point of where the fans are enjoying what they got. And I feel like this has been one of those movies where I'm like, you know what? I'm happy they did everything that they did, and they were able to do those practical effects, and they were able to do stuff like that. It just makes it a lot better. One of the points I wanted to touch on that you mentioned was Florence Pugh, and she's fantastic. She is definitely the main character of this movie, but it's not a Yelena movie. And I think that's also something that they did really well was you can clearly tell she is the main character, but they did also do a great job of making everyone else feel involved. And you mentioned this in the spoiler-free part. Everyone felt like they were part of the story. And while she might have had a few more scenes, she might have had the most lines stuff, I still really enjoyed that everyone else was being given their opportunity to tell their story and to see their character have those moments of growth, which it's a Thunderbolts movie. It's not a Yelena movie, and they executed that to perfection, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I think and you said it earlier, you kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy-esque. They really took that approach where Peter is the one that you see the movie from, but it's a Guardians movie. We
Mhm.
get Gamora that has plenty of screen time, Groot, Rocket, Mantis, the entire team is the leads of the movie. It's not a solo lead. And so we definitely see that here as well. They do a great job of balancing the team aspect, and even someone I didn't expect to have as I thought he would have more of a front run was Bucky, but it never felt like I wasn't getting enough of him.
Mhm.
And that was surprising to me because he was kind of the strength behind, he's been in the MCU the longest out of any of these. Like you kind of think he's going to be the anchor to this, but he's almost the support member of the team. From he's a congressman now, so we kind of get to see him step out of that to step into this role. And I really like what they did there with him as well, kind of incorporating plenty of him up front to where he's not like where did he come from, and then also not overshadowing anyone else because like you said, like this is a team movie, everyone gets their moment to shine. I, they just did so good with this. The pacing in this film, not only was the balancing of the characters well, but the balancing of the storytelling was also phenomenal, the best that we've seen in the MCU in a very long time. There wasn't a down part where I was like, all right, let's get on with it. Like, no, like this movie hit consistently at a great pace, and I was always engaged in this movie. It was pacing is such a big deal for me because it can really take you out of a movie, even when the scene is good, but the pacing feels off, like we're not moving along fast enough or we're kind of slowing down. Uh it can really take me out of a film. And I felt like we moved along at a perfect rate for this film.
One thing I want to go back on that I really like that you brought up is the involvement of Bucky, right? This is the character that we do know the longest in the MCU. And not only have we known him the longest, he is a big fan favorite. And so I want to give some more kudos to the writing and directing team of not leaning on that so heavily because it would have been so easy for them to be like, we know everyone likes Winter Soldier, we know everyone likes Bucky. Let's just give him a lot more screen time. Let's kind of not necessarily make the movie about him, but let him be the focal point. And I'm so happy that they didn't do that and they let him ease into that support role because he did do a fantastic job on it. So I love that aspect of it. You touched on the pacing. I thought the pacing was maybe some of the best we've seen in a Marvel movie in a long time. And I think, again, it is very important because for all the reasons you mentioned, it can take you out so quickly if something feels like it's being drawn out or something feels like it happened too fast. There was none of those moments throughout this movie for me where I was like, we got through that really quick, with the exception of one thing that I want to lead into next. What did you think about the death of Taskmaster? We kind of knew it was coming, but I definitely didn't expect it to happen as fast as it did. And I'm still kind of finding it hard to believe that they would just get rid of a character as quickly as they did. What do you think about that?
I loved it. Honestly, Taskmaster was the biggest miss in the Black Widow movie, and that's saying a lot because there was a bunch of big misses in there. Uh, uh, the not making her a mutant, not making her powers her own, but giving it to a suit. I don't love the story behind it, the emotional weight that Black Widow had to carry because it was her boss's father that she accidentally thought she killed, but she didn't. Like, I don't know. I hated that entire storyline. It's one of the reasons Black Widow for me is as low as it is because of Taskmaster and a bunch of other issues with that movie. But it gave the movie stakes immediately. And I leaned over to you and I was like, "Well, there she goes." And you were like, I think it's a fake death." And internally, I didn't say anything, but I was like, "I don't really think so." And then she gets incinerated on top of getting shot in the head. And I was like, I really like that. Like, it gave the movie stakes. It gave it an immediate, like, and we all know they're safe except for her because of the Doomsday
Yeah.
casting. But I was glad we didn't spend a lot of time with her because her character is not near as good as any of the other characters on this list. And I think she would have held back the movie. But it was one of those loose ends that you like kind of needed to tie up. And so I think they did that in a really good way to kind of show the depravity of these characters, that they are not good guys, that they are losers, that they are people who are doing whatever is told, regardless of how good it is. And it allowed a little bit of a redemption arc right from the get go. Whereas you might have been like, these characters weren't going to do what they said they were going to do, um, but they did, and it was a character we know. Yelena in the hallway scene where she shoots two of the guard agents and then kills the scientist and the other character. That's one thing because those characters are nameless and faceless to us. Essentially, it's just like killing a CGI robot.
Mhm.
But this was a character that we knew was in the movie, that was supposed to be part of the team, and we just off them immediately. I think that was a great move, in my opinion.
Yeah, like you said, when you leaned over to me, I was like, we're like 15, 20 minutes in. I expected her to make it at least halfway into the movie. And I really expected it to be one of those moments that pulls the team together, right? They're like, we need to avenge this person that we've started to kind of get close to. We've started to get used to their company. And for them just to do it like that, I was like, wow, I can't believe they went like that. But for all those reasons that you mentioned, it does work. And I do like the aspect of the stakes of it all. Like, it does feel at that point, again, because of the Doomsday's castings, we kind of know these other people aren't going to die. And it's kind of why I'm a little bit more upset about the Doomsday castings, even more so now. Because imagine going through that whole movie wondering who's next, right? Who's going to be the next person? If they're just going to kill someone that quickly into the movie, who could be next? So I really like that aspect of it, that they were willing to do it. And yeah, she wasn't the best character. A lot of people had a lot of complaints with that character. I wish that she would have been done better, because I think Taskmaster as a character in Marvel, the comics and stuff, really, really cool. But it's kind of good in a way too, because this gives me hope that maybe they never go back to a Taskmaster, but maybe now there's an opportunity to correct what they did wrongly with the writing of that character. Maybe we get a new one in the future at some point in another universe or something along those lines, which I think could be cool. But yeah, I was interested to see what you thought about that, because that's not an aspect we have really talked much about.
Yeah, no, and it definitely was a good part of the movie too. Like you said, it was 20 minutes in, which is wild. But the action just started so fast, which I really
Mhm.
liked. How did you feel about Bob, which we all know is actually the character Sentry? How did you feel about his entire character?
Yeah, so Sentry, I really enjoyed. I thought he was funny, but he was also very scary when we do see him lean into that Sentry power, and especially when we see the Void come out and we see those glowing eyes. And I think this is one of the most well executed new characters we've seen in a long time. One of the things I want to touch on that I mentioned right after the movie was they did a really good job of making like the characters' moments seem fun and cool, right? When we see Sentry powered up for the first time, we see him come down in the suit, which looked really, really good. He had a really cool moment of beating up the Thunderbolts, and I really, really was happy that it gave us those moments of like, okay, this is what this character is about. This is some of their powers. This is what makes him strong. So I thought he was great. I thought Lewis Pullman did an incredible job with the character, not only just acting wise, but he was just extremely funny. And we've talked about that as part of the things about this movie that we really enjoyed. His humor was hilarious. And it starts off, right from the beginning, his character is funny. And I really appreciate that it kind of got us smiling and giggling early on because that was allowed them to continue that throughout the movie. And I thought he did awesome.
Yeah, like you said, Lewis Pullman did a great job. He was very funny, and his lines were not forced at all. He was very, um, is very natural with his lines of
Mhm.
dialogue, and especially one of the things I liked the most was his tension between him and John Walker. When John Walker is such a jerk to him, is kind of like a little almost he doesn't even know he has powers yet. But, his little uh what is it? Like his little like passive aggressiveness towards this super soldier to me kind of like I really liked it. It was kind of hinting that he knew he had powers, but because it was almost like he was reserve strength, but he didn't know he had powers, which I like even
Mhm.
more like John Walker is such a jerk that he's willing to go up against the super soldier just because he's a jerk. And
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I kept waiting for them to show like that he could fly, like when they were stuck in the elevator, and like that was like going to be the revelation that he had powers. Like I can get you out of here, but no, they held off until a little bit later, and I think that payoff was really good too.
Yeah, I loved that we talked about some of the funny moments. The elevator scene is a highlight for me. Just kind of seeing him come up with the idea, Bob, that he's like, I have an idea of how to get out of here. And the fact that the rest of the crew was willing to go along with it, I thought that was really fun. You sent me a meme the other night, like a Toy Story meme, and I think it was so perfect. And hopefully one day when we move over to like some video formatting, we could throw stuff like that up because it was hilarious to kind of see like the correlations of what that elevator scene was like. And so whenever you guys have seen the movie already and you guys know what I'm talking about, I thought that was such a highlight of the movie that they were willing to trust this new person that they had just met because they didn't have any better ideas. And it was also a really great team moment because they were open to everybody, right? It didn't feel like there was a clear cut leader that was just going to take over, even though John Walker tried to a few times. Everybody else kept him grounded. And so I feel like those moments are like highlights of building the team up to what we got at the end of the.
Yeah, and like you said, there was no like obvious captain or obvious leader. And I like that they had to rely on each other. Like it was a
Mhm.
situation where like they didn't work with each other because they felt like like maybe I should help this person or you know it was like if I don't work with this character I'm not getting out of here
Mhm.
alive. And I really like that aspect of they didn't just start working with each other like without a reason. There was a very good, solid reason for this incredibly selfish individuals to start to join together. A lot of times when team aspects like this start to form, it can seem unnatural or like, I don't really know if they would have worked with each other there. But this gave such a great reasoning for the team to build that bond, to build that union, that I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
For sure. Now, we've talked a little bit about like the story and our favorite moments out of it. And another thing I want to dive a little deeper into is the acting. And now we've talked about it a little bit with Florence Pugh's character. So I don't want to touch on her anymore in particular, but was there another actor in this movie that you felt really stood out and really pulled the movie all together? We did just mention Lewis Pullman a little bit, but how did you feel about the others, right? Obviously, some of them like Ghost, they might not have as big of a moment, but they do have their moments. Was there someone else that you really wanted to talk that you're like, you know what, I'm really happy that we got these scenes with this character in it.
Oh, definitely Wyatt Russell.
Yeah,
Wyatt Russell playing a incredibly unlikable character, but with the dialogue and performance that he was giving, made his scenes like you still hated him, but you were enjoying that he was there.
yeah,
And I really liked Wyatt Russell. David Harbour, I touched on at the start, is brilliant as always, and
yeah,
he's just having way too much fun on screen as Red Guardian. He's just he. I don't feel like he's doing a lick of acting other than just having the time of his life doing
yeah.
this the stupid dad stuff. But yeah, I think John Walker would have been a very easy character to screw up. Some of these other characters, I feel like other people would have pulled off, and I know there's other actors that could have pulled off this John Walker. I'm not saying that he's the only one, but
Yeah.
I think it would have been a lot easier for this character to not work. And I think he just absolutely nailed it. So I was glad to see him back and kind of get a redemption almost moment for him, even though he's still a jerk by at the end of the movie. Like, he didn't really learn his lessons, but I was glad to see him acting as well as he did, and me enjoy that character as much as I did during this film.
Well, especially for us, we both rated this a 10 out of 10, and we have talked about how Yelena is obviously the star, but it is a team movie. And if you did have one character really not perform well, that's where you could start to see maybe us not think this is a 10 out of 10. Maybe that's where we lose some of the things that we enjoyed from it. And just the fact that he was so good, and he is probably the character that could have got messed up the most, because out of the other supporting cast characters, he definitely had the most screen time, the most lines. Like, he definitely talked more than Ghost did. He probably had more lines than Bucky as well. And so the fact that he did such a good job of it only made the movie better. So I was also going to say the same thing. He was the character I was happiest about with what we got on screen, because almost every joke or every sly comment at least made me smile or kind of chuckle to myself a little bit if I didn't outwardly laugh. So I thought those moments were really executed well. And so I'm super happy with the fact that he was reprised. You touched on, he got a little bit of a redemption. Obviously, he's still a jerk and still does his own things in his own way, but it wasn't just unbearable and like cringy. He could have been a character that was very easy to say was too cringy, and he did a great job of not letting that happen. So really enjoyed him. Another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit more, because we touched on it some, is the action scenes. And again, this is a superhero, this is a Marvel movie. We need good action scenes from it. What are the action scenes that really stood out for you, where you were like, wow, that was an awesome scene that I hope we get more of similarly in the future?
Yeah, this movie doesn't end with a third act, big bad smash 'em up, CGI villain fest like most of our MCU films do. When you talk about great action, I kind of think of Shang-Chi, and it really sucks because the third act of Shang-Chi really dropped the ball because of how much CGI monster fighting we did. And in this one, there was none of that. There was no big bads, CGI monster. And I just loved what we got in the form of like action entertainment and grounded fighting. And the Florence Pugh opening hallway scene was great. But honestly, like them fighting the guards at the bottom of the tower and then Sentry at the top was really quite epic. I really like to see them jump out, and even though it is just like some security guards, and there was no need to fight because like she left the door unlocked for him. Uh, I really enjoyed that fight at the bottom, and then really getting to see them go up against Sentry and really give it everything they got, and him just you know he is too powerful. He is too heavy of a character to uh to take down as weak as these characters are. So I really like those action scenes of it, but the best one in my opinion, uh holding out, was the fight in the vault between everyone. I thought the camera work, the action, the storytelling in that action scene, because just because we're doing an action scene doesn't mean the storytelling gets put on pause. And I thought they did a great job of showing each character's motivations and kind of their continued work in that vault scene when they were fighting against each other. And we got to see even Taskmaster. I know she took a bullet in this fight, but getting to see her use her powers with the prediction of the shield placement and kind of going up against and all the gadgets that she has and was pulling out. That was by far my favorite action scene, even though they were all very good.
Yeah, for sure. It was also, mine was the vault scene, because when you have all these people fighting each other, but they're not collectively all trying to kill each other, it can be kind of weird as to like, Why didn't this person just backstab this person right here? Or why didn't this happen this way? So I really like the way that they kind of immobilized everybody for each part of that fight to have their moment between each other. You know, we did touch on Taskmaster and how fast she dies in that scene that she does die, but it was really cool kind of seeing her use her shield to block the bullets that Ghost was shooting at her and kind of using the prediction of Taskmaster, knowing what they're going to do. And we have this really cool scene where she throws the shield down and it blocks a bullet, bounces up off the ground, and she catches it right back in her hand to block the next bullet. And I thought those were really, really well done parts of the scene that might kind of go unnoticed if you aren't super paying attention. But I really enjoyed that we got those moments throughout it, which I thought was really a great aspect of that scene, was letting everybody kind of go at the one person they were assigned to kill. So I really liked that. I thought the hallway or the vault scene was by far the best. Right after the vault scene, I thought we also got another cool one when they do finally get up from the elevator and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out of the vault after they've been surrounded by Dave Fontaine's military group, and we get to see them like turn the lights off, and we get to see John Walker kind of do his thing against some guards, and we get another Yelena moment. She ties Bob around her waist because he keeps getting in the way, and she's scared he's going to get shot. And we get to see a really cool scene of her like kind of using his body weight to use as momentum to throw herself around to maybe make those punches hit a little harder. And those are little things that might not seem as big when you're watching it, but when you think back on it, you're like, that was a really cool scene. So I was super happy with the whole product that we got as far as action is concerned, because again, like I mentioned when we started talking about this, it is a Marvel movie. It does have to have good action, and this one definitely delivered.
For sure.
So we've talked about some acting, we've talked about some action, and another thing that we've mentioned a little bit is the CGI aspect of it, because we know how much Marvel does use CGI in today's day and age, as with a lot of other movies done. And we've talked about how good the practical effects are throughout this movie. Do you think this is just as far as the shots that we got, you know, put aside the CGI and stuff, because we've already touched on that. Do you think this is one of the best looking Marvel movies we've ever gotten?
Um, yes. As far as like practical effects, I think this goes up there with Eternals. Now, I know Eternals, a lot of people hate on it, but it is a beautiful looking film. Um, I think this is very, very well done. It doesn't have the scenic aspects as some of the other Marvel movies do because
Mm-hmm.
we are kind of in grunge locations. But I think this looks the best because the movie was actually shot on location where it was and what they were able to do with it. Now, I don't see one single aspect of this movie where I was like, the CGI took me out of it. Not a single point in this movie did that happen, and I really love that. The Even the dream sequences at the end where they're it captured what they did with the void being location and also uh Sentry's alternative personality and himself being the void. I really love the look of him. Like the almost like obsidian look of him, like
Mm-hmm.
absolute blackness with just the slightest color in his eyes. I love the lack of depth that you could see on him because of the blackness. So that was very, very well done. But yeah, no, beautiful film.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that we talked about a little bit with the Void in particular is we obviously see in the trailer when he, you know, he decides to turn people to like shadows and put them into that void alternate reality. I really liked how that looked throughout the entire course of that scene. You do see where New York almost looks like it's not there, right? It's just like it's in a shadow. And I thought they did a really great job with that. Another thing, which I didn't ask you about this, which I want to hear your thoughts on this, is we talked a little bit about this right after the movie, but the sounds that we got throughout the editing to the sound of the movie, which in particular I'm thinking about with the Void as well. Every time he turns someone to shadow, you kind of felt it in your chest with the way they used some bass and all that stuff. What did you like about like just the way the movie sounded?
Oh, it was great. Like there was never a time when I was like struggling to hear dialogue. There was never a
Mm-hmm.
time where I was like that was like too much there. And like you just touched on the effects that they were using to bring weight to the actions that were being done on screen, like using bass correctly and it was well tuned. Man, that was awesome. And the moment when it hits when Red Guardian saves a little girl from a piece of falling debris and like oh he got his moment like amazing like saved her and then she just disappears into the
Yeah.
blackness Dude, what a powerful, like, oof, like moment, like, and almost helpless, like, because you honestly don't know, like, how this movie ends. And I thought there may have been a point where we don't get those people back. Not that, all of New York was going to die, but some of the
Mhm.
people that he directly, like, shadowed, I thought they were goners.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to kind of see the emotional weight they were able to invoke with the sound and the imagery that they put on scene.
Yeah, I think that was one of the moments, like, when that happened, that scene in particular with Red Guardian, you're like, "Yeah, they're here, right? Like, these are our heroes." And then poof, gone. And there's a lot of moments throughout this movie that hit like that. One of the scenes I think is maybe one of the best in Marvel, like, lines of dialogue that we've gotten in a while, is we hear Yelena finally snap, right? She's finally hit rock bottom, and she tells Red Guardian, she's like, "I'm so lonely, daddy." I was like, wow. Like, there's lots of moments throughout this movie that we've talked about the comedy aspect of it, but I think that's why the balance is so important, is because you have those moments where you're smiling and laughing, and then you that, and you're like, whoa, this movie is trying to touch on a lot more stuff than just goofing off and, just some random characters. They're telling something that's very important. And I thought those moments hit really hard. How did you feel about, like, the dialogue throughout the movie?
Yeah, the dialogue was great, and they did balance those scenes. I especially think of the John Walker scenes with his family and like kind of him in the house, and then how hard Yelena was on everyone when she was insulting them, and she's insulting everyone on the team, and then somebody says, "What about him?" And he says, "Oh, he knows he's a loser. Even his family knows it." And I was like, "Oh man," or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
yeah,
Like it's a really powerful line that's not a joke, like, and it hurts, like, it's painful, for the characters on screen, and then that moment leads right into the moment you were discussing about where she breaks and talks about her loneliness and that she is a failure, like, she doesn't know what to do, and I really I really like those moments. It was a great, speech from a father to a daughter that we don't normally get, especially at that age. It was cool because Yelena didn't have a dad. She
mhm,
never had her father growing up. She was raised by the Red Room. So to get that moment later in life and kind of see that was really cool.
for sure. Now, we touched on a lot of things throughout this one, and obviously, this is a Marvel movie. It's part of the MCU. How do you feel, even though we've said it's a self-contained story, how do you feel like this brings in the next movie, Fantastic Four? How do you feel like this ushers in a lot of things such as Avengers Doomsday? Did you like that it obviously was super self-contained, but do you think the little things that they did to tie everything together, and you can go ahead and start talking about the end credit scene a little bit here, which is where I think a lot of that heavy lifting was done. Do you think they did a good enough job of getting us prepared of what's to come for Marvel?
Oh, I think they did a great job. And honestly, this is what Brave New World should have done.
Mhm.
Is set up a team like so at the end of the credit scene we get to see uh Sam is having a copyright strike with the Thunderbolts are the new Avengers. Dave Fonte has announced that they are the new Avengers, and so our Thunderbolts team transitioned to the new Avengers, which is great because now we have an Avengers team going into Doomsday. And then the post credit scene allows us to know that there's a little strife between the new Avengers and the old and what Sam is putting together as the actual Avengers. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. That the back and forth between kind of setting up those two differences where it's like, hey, we have we have conflict, we have some teams established. So going into Doomsday, it's not like we have to establish a team. We have now set up that there is a team. And as little as set up as they're done, I think it's just enough to be uh worthy of kind of the prequel to one of the biggest Marvel movies we're ever going to get. So Fantastic Four is going to have to do a little bit of that as well, and hopefully we get to see the other side of that. We hopefully the end credit scene of Fantastic Four gives us the Sam's team, which we kind of got to see in the um we kind of got to see in the Instagram post that
Mhm.
Marvel posted at as we were walking out of the theater. But I really liked what they did. I felt like it was just enough. Did you feel like it was enough, or do you think we needed more?
No, I think they did a very good job. And I wanted to go back to something you said earlier on in the review here. And you were like, it's crazy we've gone as long as we have without having an established Avengers team, right? And by the end of this movie, we essentially have three teams. We go from no Avengers, no teams to having the new Avengers, Sam Wilson's Avengers, and the Fantastic Four looming. And so I think that's kind of funny that, even through these just little post credit scenes, we got so much done. And they are things that I don't feel like were just like cash grabbing. They're not just trying to make like a headline. I feel like those were in credit scenes that were actually putting us in the place that we need to be moving forward. So I really thought the in credit scenes were done well, but I also thought that was kind of funny. We go from no teams to essentially three in the span of a couple hours. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the things that were to come. And that was another aspect of that in credit scene was we get to see that there's a extraterrestrial or some, I forget the word they use, ship that has entered the atmosphere of Earth 616, and you see the ship kind of turn over a little bit, and we see the Four logo on it. So ultimately, we know at some point in the Fantastic Four movie, whether it's at the end of the movie, maybe they try to do it kind of early, we're going to see the Fantastic Four in Earth 616 very soon. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I mean, it kind of has to happen. I really enjoy that we are not going to have Fantastic Four brought into this universe in Doomsday. They are either going to be have just arrived, or they will have been here for at least a little bit. And
Mhm.
I think this. I don't think I think they're going to have just arrived for Doomsday because this was filmed on the set of Doomsday. Like that's where this post credit scene was set.
Yeah.
It was not filmed during the Thunderbolts filming sequence. This was filmed during the Doomsday sequence. So that was like probably what the reshoots were, was getting this credit scene established, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, no, I really like it. I like that we got to see it. I like that we got to see the conflict. We got to see just a little bit farther where uh, the MCU is going and progressing. And this is the kind of post credit scenes we need, right? We don't need a hint at something that they don't actually know is going to happen. Like
Yeah.
if we don't know that you're going to pursue something, don't hint it. Like the fact that we have Hercules hinted, but we're probably never going to see him, it makes me very sad. Like, just don't
Yeah.
do it. Like, it's so frustrating to put that kind of sequence and that kind of stuff on screen when all you have to do is you have a slate, you have movies that are coming. Just hint what we know is coming, and I love that that's what they did here.
Now, do you think, you mentioned that this was done on the Doomsday set, and obviously it's very easy to tell when that in credit scene comes up. It does look different. It has that, Russo brothers feel to it. Do you think this might potentially have been a scene ripped right out of Avengers Doomsday? Do you think we see almost, not necessarily frame for frame, but a very similar scene in that movie? Or do you think this is just kind of something that will get hinted at in the movie, but we've already seen it because of this in credit scene?
So I think this is almost exactly what they did with what's it called? Infinity War and Endgame. So
Mhm.
in or Captain America, Captain Marvel. In Captain Marvel, we got to see a post credit scene of her showing up to the Avengers when her beeper was called. But that scene wasn't in Endgame.
Yeah.
So I really like the fact that that scene wasn't included because I mean everyone's watching these movies, so it's cool to kind of get the introduction of that team or of her into the film without having to waste time on a silly scene like that. Like let's put it in a post credit scene and then you don't have to add it to the movie. So no, I don't think we're actually going to see this in the movie. I think this is exactly what it is. It is a standalone scene that ties very well into Doomsday, but will not be shown again in Doomsday.
I think so too. I would almost hope that they don't just put this exact same scene in there, but I also would be surprised just because of the feel of the scene. It felt like obviously this is a movie. It is a movie scene. It did feel like a movie scene, like almost directly pulled from a Russo brothers Avengers. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we do see this pretty similar scene again, because kind of the things that happen in it almost make sense for us to see it again, right? Obviously, we're going to want to see how people react to the Fantastic Four
So
ship showing up in the atmosphere. So I'm interested to see how that all works out, but I think
I
this end credit scene is great.
I actually think we will see it again, but I
Okay.
don't think we will see it again from this team. I
Okay,
think
maybe like
in
the
the
Sam
movie,
Wilson.
I think we'll see the exact same scene, but played out from Sam Wilson's side.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we will have gotten to see both teams view the same, and that may be what brings them together, right? Is so we will get to see Sam Wilson's Avengers. Hey, we have a ship coming in. What's going on? And they'll get to see Fantastic Four, but those of us who watched the new Avengers, the Thunderbolts, we will have gotten to see that the other team was there as well. So when they all show up to kind of deal with this potential threat, we know we have the backstory from both sides without having to waste time and show the same scene twice.
Who do you think shows up first, Sam Wilson's team or Yelena's Avengers?
Oh, definitely Sam Wilson's. They can fly
I mean, if Sentry can figure out how to use his powers, he might be there. He might get there pretty quick himself. But no,
with the
I
Red
think it's
Guardian
going to be.
surfing on his back.
Yeah, yeah. I think that could be a funny moment that we see. Like, oh, we showed up first. We must be the real Avengers. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, that's kind of been our Thunderbolts review. Zane, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about before we wrap this one up?
The only thing I kind of want to get before we close out, I know this has been a very long review for us, but it was a great movie. So, where does this rank in Phase 5 Marvel for you? And Phase 5 starts at Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah,
So
I think. Go ahead.
we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We have the Marvels, Deadpool and Wolverine, Captain America: Brave New World, and then Thunderbolts.
Yeah, easily this is the best movie of Phase 5. It's not really even close to me. I think the only movie that you might have a conversation with is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But overall, I just enjoyed this movie better. I gave this one a 10. I don't remember what I rated Guardians 3, but I know it wasn't a 10. And I love this movie. I want to watch it again. And I'm not usually the type of person that wants to watch movies multiple times. Usually I watch it once. I'm good for a while. I am looking forward to watching this one probably pretty quickly after it comes to Disney Plus, just because I enjoy it that much. I love the action. I love the humor in it. The deepness of what they touched on, I thought also was great. So yeah, this one for me is definitely my number one of Phase 5. How about you?
It's this number second. So number second, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is my third favorite Marvel film in my entire ranking. I also gave it a 10 out of 10. So it's going to be hard to beat that one, especially with the emotional resonance with Rocket Raccoon feeling like oh man, I love that movie way too much to rank this one above it. Now over time, it'll probably get even a further gap for me because Guardians just hold a special place in my heart. But yeah, no, it is close. I mean, they're both 10 out of 10s for me, but as far as which movie I enjoyed more, which one had more emotional weight for me, it was definitely Guardians. I think this one dealt with a harder issue, which is the depression, and it's more applicable. But I also think that self worth and like purpose and just oh man, there's so much else in depth to Guardians of the Galaxy that I just love with the high evolutionary and everything that they do there with the father aspects and yeah, no, so I can't review Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 right now. But yes, so this is second for me in Phase 5, but this is very high on my list as an overall ranking, and it's definitely top 10, but it's
Yeah.
probably sixth for me overall in the MCU, which does rank it above the first Avengers and Age of Ultron. I just really enjoyed this one so much.
Yeah, which is so cool when you have a movie like this getting into that caliber of movie, right? Usually those Avengers movies are what headline everybody's list. Everyone has the Avengers movies at the top there. And so I'm really happy that this one is kind of sneaking its way into not only our top 10, but I think going to sneak its way into a lot of other people's top 10s. When they sit down and actually think about how good of a movie this was, it's hard not to be happy with the product that we got. So, yeah, that is our Thunderbolts review, our new Avengers movie review, which we've been talking about, wondering if this is going to be retitled because we've been seeing all of the billboards change. We've been seeing all sorts of stuff on social media about how they are fully promoting this as the new Avengers. Very funny. So I'm excited to kind of see that revelation as well. Zane, where do you land with that one? Question of this review. Do you think they do rebrand this movie to the new Avengers, or do you think it sticks as Thunderbolts?
I think it depends on how the second week at the box office performs. If we get a massive boost, because I'm expecting almost zero drop in the box office from this first week to next week because of how good the reviews are coming in for this movie. Um, but if we see a big drop and it's not performing how it wants to, I would say they change the name to the New Avengers.
Yeah, it's which I think too. I think this is definitely a stunt by them to see if they can get more people into theaters. Like people are like, "Oh, Avengers movie, I got to go see it," right? So I definitely see this as like maybe a smart ploy. I think if we do start seeing more asterisks at the end of movie names, though, we're gonna have Marvel to blame for it. But guys, that is gonna do it for our Thunderbolts review. If you guys did enjoy this, make sure to rate us. Let us know what you guys thought. We have many ways to reach out to us on social media. Let us know your thoughts on the movie. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, if you didn't enjoy it, I think you're crazy. But I'd love to hear why you didn't, because I think obviously me and Zane are in the same frame of mind, but maybe we're missing something that could have maybe changed our thoughts a little bit. But I think we're both pretty set in our ranking for this one because we both really enjoyed it. But again, thank you guys so much for always listening to us ramble on about these movies and these reviews. It's always an absolute blast. And we have a lot of upcoming movies this summer, Zane. We have Fantastic Four and Superman up next, I believe, in our docket. Which one are you looking forward to more?
Superman, just because I really want to see that franchise take off.
Yeah, so I think I'm right there with you, but some of these trailers we've been getting for Fantastic Four have got me also very excited for it. So it's going to be a great summer for movies. I think this might have been the perfect movie to start off this summer blockbuster because we have lots of stuff coming out this year. And I think if this movie is any indication of what's to come, we're in for a great year of movies. But as always, thank you guys so much for listening to us, and we can't wait to catch you on the next episode of Weekly Fix.